Um, Today is my grandchild's one of my grandchildren, I got 8, his birthday. His name is Howard Delbert, and thankfully they're calling him Howard. So I want to wish him a happy birthday today. Yesterday, when we were talking about the possibility of asking to be rehired in this position, his brother, older brother, 5-year-old Mance, was there. Mance, after we discussed all that was involved in an election and whatnot, Mance came up and he looked really sad. And he sat next to Lynn, he put his head on her chest, and he said, "I'm really worried about this election." He said, "You know, if Dees loses, he's not going to be able to get a job." So when I was at hunting camp a couple of years ago, it got really cold. And so usually, those of you who've been to hunting camps know it really gets cold. So I went to Clarksdale, I went to the Walmart to get a heater, to plug into the camp and whatnot, because we had another cold night. So I went and I was looking at the heaters, and as I was picking them off the shelf, this lady came up behind me. And of course I was in my blue jeans and my hunting clothes and stuff. And she said, you look like you know what you're doing here. Which heater are you getting? I said, well, I'm looking at this one, but some of them are 2,500 watts. Some of them rotate, ma'am. You have to look at on the label here. And as I turned around, there were 2 or 3 other people had come up behind her. So they said, well, which one would you pick? And I said, well, this, that, and the other. And I finally turned to them and I said, I sold 10 heating at Walmart. So last night I turned to man and said, I have other possibilities. I'm not just one guy. I got other things I can do. I want to welcome you to your very solvent state capitol. Never in the history of the state have we been in the financial condition we are, and it did not happen by accident. Speaker Gunn, you see Trey here, you see Jason, our leadership Dean, Briggs, Josh, all of those people spent a whole bunch of time cutting the budget the first year, watching the dollars the next 2 years, and that entailed, as Dean has put out to you, we had a $1.4 billion surplus. Put that in perspective with our rainy day fund, puts it over $2 billion. To put that in perspective further, California has a $25 billion deficit. Your state is being run like your business. And it has been a while to get it to that, but it is happening today, and you can look at the numbers. We have decreased the size of this government by 3,000 employees since the day you hired this team. We further will pay off $600 million in principal debt since you hired this team. We have positioned Mississippi to grow and prosper like it has never been before. Now, none of us would be here without your support. None of us would have learned how to run a business had we not been associated with you and you running your business. So you get a lot of the credit for that. You put us in a position to play the game, and we have been honored to represent you. When you look forward this next year, we'll have that surplus and we'll have the discussions about tax decreases or tax rebates. We'll be talking about that. What a wonderful discussion to have for the state of Mississippi. 2 weekends ago, I had the privilege of meeting with Sarah Huckabee Sanders. She's the governor-elect of Arkansas. And in the course of that discussion, she said to me, "You really are putting a lot of pressure on me. You've raised your teachers too much." What a discussion to have. You're so far ahead of Arkansas, I'm probably going to have to move my teachers' pay raise up. What a place to be. And you're there now. You should be so very proud of what you have accomplished in Mississippi here. This year, we've got $350 million of appropriations. One of the best things that the legislature did last year was to tell the cities and the counties, If you'll put up your money on water and sewer, we'll take the money that was given to us by the federal, we'll match your money. That's going to end up being over $900 million in water and sewer in this state. Not the sexy kind of thing, but the thing that allows you to do business. The things that allow you to do your business. So you'll see more of that this year. You'll see our infrastructure, as Dean was talking about, we put $2.3 billion on it last year. You'll see that again this year, where we're looking. But more importantly, to people like Mike and others, we did almost $1 billion worth of actual contracts. Not that we appropriated the money. Guess what? We're actually using it. We're putting it on the streets where it ought to be, and it should be every year. This next year, as you've probably heard, I have been from Gulfport to Corinth, and I have sat in these schools that have gone to a modified calendar. In that modified calendar, you go 9 weeks, you're off 2 or 3 weeks, you have intersessions in October, and you have intersessions at Christmas and spring, and about a 4-week break in the summer. They are producing records for us. And when I talk to the teachers in Corinth, I talk to them and I ask them, what's wrong with this? Then I ask the big question, what about football season? Oh, football was great, everybody came to the games. What about the band? The band played. What's wrong with this? Nothing. We love it. This gives us time off. By the way, I'm sick of those kids in March. They were real honest about it. And this gives me the break. So we have our kids, we are competitive with Alabama and China. We have our kids going to school in an organized fashion, in a learning fashion, so that they can come work for you, and one day they will have employees like you working for them. That is so important. We don't need to go like we always did. We need to start looking at our education system a little different. Now, Lamar County already started. Gulfport already started. Went down and sat in the intercession. During that intercession period, they still bring kids in. They feed them. They're in an educational learning environment. Whatever. It was magnificent. And so we can do that. We're going to end up being one of the leader states as our state proliferates all the way across. And I encourage each and every one of you to ask your parents, your school boards, whether that's a good idea for your school system. Because it is for everyone else that's trying it right now. So I encourage you to do that. We had the Dobbs decision. You'll see a lot of things coming out about adoption from the Senate this time, and about how we can do better about kids that are here, about their early education and the things that go with it. One other thing. Like a lot of us here, we recognize that you can perform your business, that you can earn your living only if you're in a stable environment. We do not need to have people on the street that are going to steal your car. We do not need to have your wife or your child held up at gunpoint to take their car. We need to have mandatory sentencing. When they do that, they need to go to prison. They don't need to be in our society. Now, I've been looking at the reports that come out of the Office of the Courts over here. They have shared, Mr. Snowden has shared that with me. I see people that have been convicted of carjacking that are sentenced to 5 years and 5 years suspended. They don't spend any time in prison. That's not acceptable. That's not acceptable in my community, which is here, or in any other community in Mississippi. There are times in which we need to make people have the lesson that they need to get along with their society and the society that we live in without stealing somebody's automobile. You will see more legislation coming out of the Senate on this particular issue this year. So, I want to thank y'all for coming. As you can tell, usually they say election years are supposed to be kind of slow and stuff. Nope. We intend to take on everything we need to do for the legislature. There is no off year on the Senate side, and I don't think on the House side either. So hang with us. Without your leadership in Mississippi, none of us would be able to stand here and put our state really in the best financial condition it's ever been in. So thank you very much for having me. We look forward to working with all of you during the coming year. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's great to be with you, and it's always a pleasure to welcome you to the Capitol. This is always an exciting day, and we're thrilled to have our business community come to the Capitol. We love working in conjunction with you. We were a little concerned about where you were. Scott said y'all were supposed to be here at 10:30. And I said, well, you must have some legislators driving the buses. They don't, it's not that hard. You get on the high street and you come up the hill. I'll tell you kind of a funny story. My, I guess first or second year as speaker, we brought forward a charter school bill trying to give more opportunities for educational opportunities to our students. My aunt from Missouri was here. That debate on that bill is the longest debate in the history of the Mississippi legislature. It went for about 11 hours. It started at 2 in the afternoon and went to about 1 o'clock in the morning. My aunt from Missouri, who was here, watched it for about 8 hours. She stayed about 10 o'clock and she couldn't take it anymore and she went home. So I didn't see her till the next morning. And I said, well, Aunt Peggy, tell me what you thought about the debate. And she said, if there was ever evidence of the need for education reform in Mississippi, it's the Mississippi legislature. She said, I couldn't believe some of the stupid arguments that I heard on the House floor. So she wasn't that impressed. I think I got about 8 minutes to talk about a lot of things. Let me touch on just a few things that Scott says are important to MEC this year. There were 3 things that he mentioned. Transportation funding, workforce development, and then one thing I want to touch on is the income tax. We have here y'all's report from last year, stronger than ever. This is what you produced at your 2022 annual meeting last June. And within that, you talk about legislative accomplishments. And one of those was the personal income tax reduction right there at the bottom of the page. I want to thank you for your help in what we did last year. Many of you have heard me speak about the advantages of eliminating the personal income tax, how that helps Mississippians, how that puts more money into their pockets. When you give them more disposable income, they're going to have a better ability to provide for themselves, improve their quality of life, provide for their children, spend those dollars in the community. How many of you sell a good or a service? Everybody in here sells a good or service. If you got a job, you're selling a good or you're selling a service. So if we put more money in their pockets, they're going to buy more stuff. They're going to buy more of the stuff that you're selling. They have more to give to their church. There's just no downside to letting people have more disposable income. You helped us last year get that message across, and we changed our tax structure last year to go to a flat 4% tax rate. What we did last year has been touted all across the country. I had no idea how many people were watching Mississippi and our efforts to eliminate the income tax. That's still a goal of mine, eliminate the income tax. And we may have to take steps along the way over the next few years to get there, but we're going to hopefully find a day, come to a day at some point, where the citizens of our state get to keep all of their hard-earned money. So I wanted to, first of all, point that out. Thank you for your help and efforts in getting us there. And I'm proud to see that you listed 4 accomplishments last year. One of them was the elimination of the reduction of the income tax. 2 other things that Scott's mentioned when we met a couple of weeks ago was transportation. I want to brag on a couple of guys. Trey Lamar is over here. Raise your hand, Trey. And Jason White, standing over there. And then there was a guy named Mark Baker, who's no longer in the House. But in 2018, we passed a very transformative transportation bill. We took some of our use tax, dollars that we already have. This didn't raise a tax anywhere. We just took money that was already coming in and passed an Infrastructure and Modernization Act. And under this bill, we devote 1/3 of the use tax to transportation, to roads, bridges. At that time, it was about $120 million. I haven't checked to see what the number is lately, but at that time, it was $120 million. Every year, we took $20 million, we put it into the local bridge program, we took $50 million and gave it to the counties, and we took $50 million and gave it to the cities every year. And that has been happening every year since 2018. At that time, when we passed that bill, I think there were almost 700 bridges around this state that were closed or posted. It was in excess of 600, I know that. And I think it was approaching 700. Mike, do you remember how many? Is that about right? When I last checked, 4 years later, after the passage of the bill, we're down to 288. That's how many bridges have been repaired around this state. The plan is working. And these gentlemen that I just pointed to were the brains behind that. They were the ones who developed that plan, brought it up to the House of Representatives. We passed it, the Senate passed it, and that plan has begun to work over the last 4 years, and we're seeing improvements in our transportation and roads and bridges and infrastructure around the state. In addition to that, we've done a whole host of other things. We put a portion of the lottery money towards roads and bridges. Each year we designate and appropriate money towards roads and bridges. And all these things have worked together to make improvements. We're going to continue to do that this year. We're going to continue to push to make sure that our infrastructure is addressed. Second thing, or the last thing, is workforce development. And to make this point, let me tell you about a conversation I had last summer, well, 2 summers ago now. There was an individual here in Jackson from the Association of Equipment Manufacturers. This guy was out of Washington, D.C., and his job was to go around the country and select sites for companies. And as a matter of conversation, just as curiosity, I said, tell me what the number one thing is you look for. When you're going to a state, going to a city, and you're looking to recommend a site to this company, what's the number one thing you look for? He said, workforce. You gotta have a good, educated, reliable workforce, or you don't even get on the list. Number 2 was infrastructure. Well, I think that highlights the importance of both of those things. So last year, we passed House Bill 1388, which was the Comprehensive Career and Technical Education Reform Act. That sounds impressive, doesn't it? It was a workforce development bill, and what we did under this bill was to create and put into all middle schools and high schools around the state career coaches. And their job is to sit there and guide students, tell students about career technical job opportunities, steer them towards those professions, make them aware of the jobs that exist, because many of our students, about 60% of our workforce, I think, is in those type of professions, those types of jobs: welders, mechanics, electricians, plumbers, good careers where they can make great money. So we put under this bill career coaches in the high schools and middle schools. This year, we're going to put more money there. We want to make, this is probably the most exciting thing about this bill is the career coaches. We've heard more feedback from people about the excitement surrounding the career coaches. So we're going to hopefully this year put more money towards that, put a great emphasis on our workforce development. Under this bill, we have asked the Department of Education and the Community College Board to work together to create dual enrollment classes to align the classes that they offer so that they're addressing the industry needs. They're looking at the job markets around the state, which changes from region to region in many cases. Are we giving the type of education that addresses the job market in Laurel, Mississippi, in Greenwood, Mississippi, in DeSoto County? Let's make sure that the education we are providing aligns with the job market that exists. I want to commend Donnie Bell, who's my workforce chair, who was the lead on this. I want to commend Ryan Miller, who's at the Office of Workforce Development. The two of them worked together to put this bill together. We had some ideas. We didn't know if they were good or not. I called Ryan to my office and said, here's the bill we want to draft. You take it, you tweak it, you fix it like you think it ought to be fixed so that we can accomplish what we're trying to do in the area of workforce development. He did that, we passed the bill, and we're hopeful that that bill will transform the landscape of workforce development. Pretty much out of time. Those are kind of the three things that I think Scott tells me are important to you: transportation, workforce, and I just want to say thank you for the income tax. Let me close with this. Many of you may have heard this before, but if you have, you'll just have to endure it again. I spoke in here one time to a group of third graders, and you know, your speech doesn't always connect. When you come in here and I try to communicate with you, sometimes I don't always succeed. A group of third graders came here one time, and their teacher wanted me to speak to them. I said, what you want me to tell them about? She said, I want you to tell them how a bill becomes a law. I was like, my gosh, are you sure? And she said, oh yeah, they need to know this. And I said, they're in the 3rd grade. And she said, oh, but this is the gifted class. These are the smart ones. They can get it. I said, okay, so you are clearly politically minded. You're here today because you are concerned about the legislative process, right? So you need to understand this too. The bill starts when a legislator comes in with an idea and they go to see the attorneys. The attorneys draft the bill and they send it to the Speaker's office. The Speaker then refers the bill to the committee, and the committee chairman refers it to the subcommittee chairman. The subcommittee chairman deals with the bill. If they like it, they pass it out to the full committee. If the full committee likes it, it comes to the full House floor. If the House passes the bill, then it goes to the Lieutenant Governor's office, where he then assigns the bill to the chairman of the committee. The chairman of the committee assigns it to the subcommittee. If the subcommittee passes it, it comes out to the full committee. If the full committee likes it, it goes to the full Senate. If they pass it, then it goes to the governor for signing. But if they change the bill in any way, it comes back over to the House for concurrence or non-concurrence. If we agree with the changes, then we send the bill to the governor. But if we don't agree with the changes, then we send the bill to conference. In conference, the lieutenant governor puts up 3 senators, the speaker puts up 3 House members. Those 6 individuals sit in a room and hammer out the differences. If they come to an agreement, they produce what's called a conference report. Conference report is returned to both chambers for consideration. If both chambers pass a conference report, then it goes to the governor for signing. But at any time, the governor can veto the bill. If he vetoes the bill, then it comes back to the House of Origination for override. If one chamber overrides by a 2/3 vote, then it goes to the other chamber. And if they override by a 2/3 vote, then the bill becomes law. Any questions? 3rd grader sitting on the front row raised his hand. I said, yes, sir. He said, you like pizza? I said, yes, I do, and you're qualified to be a legislator. Thank you.
I'm honored to be here, and I appreciate you guys being here. You know, the real leaders of our state are here. We'd like to say we are, but we understand, and you understand, that the real leaders are here, and you're the ones that make our economy grow. You're the ones that make things happen in this state. We try to help you, and that's our job. For years, the #1 issue when we come in session, for years, and this is my 32nd session, so I've been here a while. It seemed like every year, the #1 issue was always education. Every year. Started changing a couple of years ago. And then last year we did so much for education. We're not hearing a lot about education now. Our teachers, I think, are happy with their raises, and they've got really good raises. I think everyone's pretty satisfied. We got all these A schools now that have come up from C and D schools to A and B schools. So, things are really good there. What we're hearing, or what I'm hearing, and I can't speak for everyone else, but the #1 topic now is revenue, without a doubt. People want to know how much money you got and how much you're going to give us, and where's it going. That's the number one issue that I'm hearing. #2 issue that I'm hearing is crime and safety. People, it doesn't matter how good your school is, if your children aren't safe there, they don't want to go in there. People don't want to go to a shopping center, or don't want to go to wherever. I hate to say it, but some places, maybe even church, may not want to go because they don't feel safe getting there, or they don't want their cars broken into, or they don't want, don't want to be carjacked or whatever. So but what I'm hearing, that's the #2 issue. And then #3 is education. We're always going to have those that are trying to get more, and we understand that, and we want to do all we can for them. But that's the big thing. Now, I got actually a couple of notes, and I'm going to read some of this because of the fact that I can't remember all these numbers. There's been so many. But I want to talk a little bit about ARPA money. And in the water sewer infrastructure programs, applications closed the first round, as you know, and the grants and the city and the rural water associations. And the rural water association, which was administered by the Mississippi Department of Health, they had like $300 million, and 287 applicants received, and 132 projects were funded with $52 million in I'm sorry, yeah, 52 million of that was shovel-ready projects, ready to go. You guys were waiting on the money, and so you got that. And then cities and counties, Mississippi Department, or DEQ, as you know it, Department of Environmental Quality, they had $450 million. Application portal closed on September the 30th with about $435 million in applications. Second round application portal then open on December the 1st. So there's still, and those will be awarded, I think, before February the 1st. Now, we have about $345 million in unappropriated ARPA money, and that includes $50 million that was vetoed for a hospital. And anyway, we're seeking the best use of those funds. I'd say it'd go probably to emergency water and sewer needs. Now, let me tell you about infrastructure. We've invested heavily in infrastructure last year, and as the speaker said, in the years before, and we intend to do that again as the money comes in. At the end of November, we were a little over $347 million above the sine die revenue estimate. 277.9 million of that was above the prior year's collections. So money is coming in, as you can see. For the first year ending June 2022, we were up $1.4 billion, but the growth in the current year shows 23.6 million above sine die in November versus 84.5 in October of the month before. You see how it dropped, and then versus 126 in September. So revenues are going down. You know, we all want to spend the money in the proper place, and we want to make sure we're doing the right thing. What we got to do is, again, be conservative, make sure that we have enough money for emergencies and for those that really have to have it. There's a lot of difference, as you know, between needs and wants. So we got to take care of the needs before we do the wants. But we've invested in infrastructure. We're going to continue to invest in infrastructure. We want to help you guys every way we can. And as a guy told me one time, I've never heard a bad short speech. Thank you very much.